for the second negotiation between the city of Lamarque and the Lamarque Firefighters Association, Local 3282. We are going to turn this over to our lead negotiator, Mr. Cesar Garcia, so that he can move us forward in this negotiation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning to all, both present and who are joining us as a support staff, whether it be throughout the room. Let's take a moment and introduce ourselves. We'll introduce the folks that are joining us through Zoom, and then we can get started if that's okay by everybody. Okay. We'll start with our guests.
My name is Mark Madrano. I'm the 4th District Vice President for the Texas State Association of Firefighters.
Okay.
Joe D. Martinez, President of Local 3282.
I'm Isaiah Reyes, Vice President of Local 3282.
David Merriman, I'm the Fire Chief for the City of Lamarque.
My name is Cesar Garcia. I'm the City Manager for the City of Lamarque. The record reflect, the mayor was the one that did the opening introduction.
I am Mayor Keith Bell, City of Lamarque.
If we could also just point that as far as support staff joining us both presently and remotely, we've got Ms. Jennifer Earl, we've got Ms. Patty Reese, from the HR office, and virtually we've got our City Attorney Gus Knable, our T Director Kyle Hunter, and our Finance Director Ms. Susie, who's on the call. That being said, we could go over a brief recap. We'll welcome all those that are joining us, being that no one else is here present, whoever may be joining through different channels, be it Zoom or YouTube, who may be watching or may watch the recording of this at a later time. That being said, we'll open up with a brief recap and we'll go into the follow-up items.
Sure. So what we talked about at the last one was basically compensation and personnel. Really, that's the gist of the whole thing. There's lots that could be said in many different ways in order to eventually come to an agreement. We're open to avoid that particular process with basically the information that we provided for you. And it's a lot, and most of it's pretty self-explanatory, but we are open to answering your questions about it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just to tabulate this, because at the end of it, it's not just pay by position, right? It's a summary total of how many total folks you have, and then what that looks like for per position and so forth.
Yes, sir.
So just to kind of look that information up, because I know I didn't necessarily have it. If we could share that, that'd be great. Specifically, at the last meeting, we went through 3 different scenarios, what the increases would include. That you shared, and I appreciate you guys sharing this remotely since I was out of the office the first meeting. But as far as follow-up information, our beginning salary is $48,717. I believe you guys are going to follow up with some information to share as to where that stands amongst other folks, or
The entry level salary.
Well,
Yeah, our pay survey,
Yeah,
that's
we gave
in your
those-
packet
yeah,
information.
we
has
gave
that
those packets to y'all.
at the first meeting. It starts with a cover letter from the International. This is who did the pay survey for us. If you don't have it, I have another copy.
He may or may not have it, because his was scanned, right?
Oh, you got some more, yeah.
Oh, you got another one? Okay, gotcha.
So basically, if you look at those documents, if you look at the main numbers with that report, it's basically saying we're below 30% of those departments right there. And that's why we proposed the 3 proposals, which we know we're no West University, we're not no Baytown, but we do know that we are losing our people to there. So that's why we proposed a 15 to 20%, which is half of what the main is. And we're proposing like in the 3-year contract at, if we say we got portions of it throughout the 3 years to try to help y'all out with the population, with that homes getting built, so y'all can get y'all's tax revenue. We understand.
And keep on, for this exhibit here, for the page, it's for firefighters only. So the other one that was provided for you was for the officers, or was, the rank and file for the rest. Because international only does at the firefighter level. So
Because
that's
there's,
starting pay base for people just getting started in our comparison list.
That number, that figure, is that firefighter EMT, firefighter paramedic?
that's firefighter, some departments like West University, that's firefighter paramedic. Baytown would be firefighter paramedic.
And if you look further back in this survey, it starts to break down,
So if you look at Baytown,
it has all the information for their holiday pay, their maintenance allowance, their base salary, their shift differentials. So it does have all their holiday vacation, like it has everything in there. This comparison doesn't just go on the hourly rate, it goes on everything that they have in their contracts, if they have contracts, right?
Rez, what were you gonna say?
so usually all departments, every single department that I've ever known or heard, they usually give a salary and then they have incentives. So basically for most departments, for paramedic, they usually do $500 for a paramedic incentive. And so that's the same thing. So with the salary for Baytown, you would have to include also their paramedic incentive.
So it actually goes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we know what Baytown's?
I believe,
Well, yeah.
Mr. Madrano. Oh,
Paramedic,
yeah,
I want to say it's 500.
$500. So it's the same as ours right now.
Chief, while I say so, I was looking at those numbers, do you know how many of your folks? And I would say, not just since you've been the chief, right, but I guess maybe the last 3 years would be a good place to start. How many of your people have resigned to take jobs at other departments that you know of, with the understanding that they were going for a high pay?
I actually have a list of that. Let me get
You have a
on-
list?
Let me get on my,
And what is our total, how many firefighters do we have total in suppression?
we have-
Captains, engineers? Oh,
So we have a total of 31 certified firefighters throughout, so sworn personnel. 27 are on shift. And then with the exception of our administrative assistant, all of the admin staff are also certified firefighters.
So when you give us the number, what that number is in context is gonna be, this is out of 31 folks. We have X amount leaving, right?
It would be, yes, sir. It would be
Right.
for the entire,
Right. So that'll put it into context.
Right.
It's not
Yes,
like
sir.
a 500 member department. This is
Right.
a small department.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
And there are, little bitty discrepancies like the interns,
Right.
Sure.
operational personnel without certifications.
Quick question, the number of 31 you stated, is that including vacancies or not? Including vacancies?
that's total authorized.
Total, authorized, so 31. And what's the magic number? I know that for regular full-time employees, it's 2,080.
2756 for shift personnel.
6 hours. This is similar to what we did yesterday.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I think we're going to need to show the public that there's a problem, right? And the
Yes,
problem is primarily financial
Absolutely.
compensation.
Mhm.
And I think we need to discuss this reality that our fire captains are driving fire trucks around town by themselves,
Yes, sir. And that's directly related. And I think
pulling
that's,
up on scene, pulling hose, dropping tanks, catching supply lines,
And
suppressing fires,
help my kids and my dogs are in
incident
there.
commander.
car accidents, one person with 3 cars with 7 people.
On
8 people,
45.
On
In
45.
between concrete barriers.
Yeah.
I walk into a house fire all day long. It's not a problem. Getting out on the highway
Oh, yeah,
and by yourself
I get it.
with nobody to help if I get hit.
I get it.
It's scary. Highway is scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's directly, I think I stated this in our opening statements the first time, every bit of this work, all the time and countless hours spent trying to get this information together. The end result, honestly, for 3282 and all of Lamar Fire, because everybody benefits, whether they're part of our union or not, They benefit from this contract. It's for everyone. But ultimately, it's for the citizens. Ultimately, we want to be able to confidently and effectively and safely provide the best service we possibly can. And as of right now, we've been doing the best we can with what we have. And that's just becoming very, very tiresome. And now we're starting to have negative impacts on our personnel as far as people finding the greener grass per se. But the ones still in it for the right reasons are the ones pressing to go out there and just be proud of the work that we're doing. And then having a couple more people on the truck to get off and divide that workload is going to do just that. It's going to help calls. That's who ultimately benefits from all this is 3 or 4 guys show up and we could do all that work and do it better than we can with one. I mean, that's just, it's common sense, but ultimately it benefits the citizens, and that's exactly what we're paid to do as a service.
And the thing is, you obviously know the city's growing. I moved over here. I'm from Houston. I've lived in Houston my whole life. Before I was in the military, I lived in Kentucky, but before I got a job here, I never thought, I'd be living in the market, but I moved over here. I love it here. I love the community here. I love the fire department. I love everything that's going on. But you could tell that it's growing. And obviously, when the city's growing, the fire department has to grow with it. We understand, it takes time for the taxes to start kicking in. And that's why we know that when we come in and ask for personnel and money, I know it's going to take time. And that's what we want to start the process now. Obviously, we need 4-man trucks. We need more stuff, but we're not coming here being like, oh, we want 12 people right now. That's what we just trying to begin. So that way, 3 years from now, when hopefully, stuff has been catching up, we'd be like, hey, can we get another more set of hands to help us out? And then the money, we haven't had raises in years now. And, we all know everything's going up, inflation has gone up. I think national standards like what, at least 7%. So, that's the way we set those packets up. And what we were hoping for was 15 to 20% spaced out in 3 years.
Yeah, we'll be open with you. We need a significant uptick with our stuff to get started, to keep things moving forward, because if not, ultimately it feels like to us that we'll be moving backwards in a pay cut at this point without some sort of significant to get started with, and in some sort of time frame to work with the city to make sure that no one's getting hit all at one time. But again, ultimately better and making it more better the service that the city of Lamar provides to its citizens through its fire department. That's what it's about. You doing the math over there, Mr. Garcia?
I'm trying to crush up numbers here. I'm just looking at total budget to try to get a per capita rate.
I don't think one thing we didn't consider too was, the turnover rate is pretty high, and that's why, because the processes are all different for each city when you get hired. Some people take months, some people take days. We have a lot come in that have applied multiple, and they come in like, yeah, this is, mediocre and it'll work for now. And then, oh, Paradigm called me back finally, and out the door, and those are investments that the city makes, that we make for someone like me with purchasing, life safety gear and things like that. Those turnover rates are costly. That number's very costly. If we could retain, that'll cut back on a lot too. Overtime.
Yep.
I'm sure you've seen our overtime budgets.
I think at the end of the day, I think both sides already have a good feel. We know what the problems are. And now we just need to try to work it out.
Yep.
Trying to figure out how we can make those numbers work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's that I believe the council sees the opportunity. They see the challenges and the opportunity.
I'm just doing a table.
Sure. Take your time.
But I wanted to get an understanding of what these numbers look like. And I'm just taking and dividing by our population. So right now, for the sake of math, I'm looking at our latest population being 18,697. So for the sake of math, 18,697 is what I'm looking at.
He's trying to arrive at how much money we spend on our fire and EMS protection per citizen.
Mhm.
That's what we did yesterday with the police.
Okay.
I think it came up to $292,
293
$293 per person that
Person.
we spend on police. So he's trying to get that.
per resident.
per
Mhm.
resident.
I'm trying
Okay,
to get your per resident number.
okay.
So that we might be able to compare that with some other cities
Okay,
to give the residents something that's, very easy to understand. This is how
Right.
much we invest in our fire. This is how much other communities invest in their fire. We suspect that number's gonna be lower, our number's gonna be lower, so. Context.
And the reason why for that is we want to showcase the fact that we underfund our folks compared to other cities.
Right.
Not concerned with our low tax rates, number of calls, all those things. The truth is, it's going to be hard for us to find a comparable that compares that way. However, if we compare how much is invested in our departments versus how many folks we have, and we put a per capita rate on it, then that might be a different viewpoint.
gotcha. Understand.
All right,
Yeah.
and that way it's fair regardless, because at the end of the day, we're all human, right?
Yes, sir.
And the thing that folks call you about is not related to crime rate, right? Although you could argue there's some socioeconomic factors that may cause that. But if it's for an EMS call, it may be because of health, right? It may be because of a car accident. There are certain factors that you can associate certain calls based on the actual budget, if you will, or the actual societal wherewithal, the family median income and so forth. But at the end of the day, we want to show a numbers comparison,
Yes,
if
sir.
that's possible. So total budget is 3,141,397. So the total fire budget is this is for the sake of math, and this, I'm just gonna tell you how I derived these numbers, so if you want to play with them yourself for comparison reasons. We're taking the total fire budget is 3,141,397. We're taking that number, we're dividing it by our population, which we took from the 2021 latest, census report that shows to be 18,697. Okay, rough math. And take those numbers to divide to get to where the numbers are. All right, and then we're gonna try to put it in a comparison, if you will. So according to this very rough math, right? It costs for fire services roughly $168 per resident per year.
Yes, sir.
That's regardless of their age, regardless. So if my household has 10 people in it, then it's that number times 10,
Mhm.
right? And this is just for comparison reasons, okay? So for the household, if you will, if you were to break it down as to per capita, what the cost is per capita. Now, we all know that we don't get taxed on per capita. We get taxed on property or whatever. So essentially what I've done also with my table, and I can share my notes if you guys, whenever you guys want, is I took the number of hours that you guys have, regardless of percentage, right? Just to put quantifiable value on what it is for equal across the board, regardless of rank,
Yes, sir.
just to put a monetary value. And the table that I put was taking 202,756 hours, multiplying it by what does that look like if we gave every single person across the board a $1 per hour increase for the year, times 31 folks. Again, that's not adding a single body, just to see what it looks like right now. I take 2,756 times 31 right now to keep the same number of folks that we have right now. That equates to an increase in the budget of 85,436, or a increase of $4.57 per person in the city. Okay. Then I took that same thing and just multiplied it by what $2 looks like, which equates to 170,872, and then by 3, just for the sake of the comparison for math.
Sure.
Because we have a challenge at the end of the year, as you guys know, like we mentioned last time, the pie's not getting any bigger, it's
Yes,
staying
sir.
the same, actually it's getting smaller. How are we gonna do that? So the next challenge that I'm gonna ask is, and different from police, right? Police, they can't really increase their revenue because there's only certain tickets they're gonna write and so on and so forth, very different, right? It's, hopefully we want them to write less tickets. And eventually we want you to have less calls that go on because it means that we're not, there's not a need for so many emergencies. But where we're at right now, where we're going, that's not very realistic.
Yes, sir.
So I try to do it that way. And again, I can share my rough math. But I wanted to look at as a starting point, if you will, for this situation. So now in turn, from a budgetary constraint, depending on where the numbers lie, right? But you can look at percentages, $1 an hour, $2, whatever it equates to. What you've told us basically is that according to the math that you shared with us, you are roughly, and again, roughly 19 to 20% below for year 1.
Yes.
And that fluctuates as you go up. But essentially for year 1, we are about $14,000, give or take, lower than what everybody else pays for the same position.
Yes, sir.
And then as you move on to year 6, that drops to about roughly 10,000. And then from there, for years 11, it goes to about 11,000, so on and so forth.
Yes, sir.
So as we look at that, again, we're dealing today with problems that probably should have been started to be addressed years back. But it is what it is. We're dealing with it now. To bring that to somewhere where it's somewhat close, what I didn't share with you were the numbers of what it's per person. So at $1 increase per person times 31 times the amount of hours you work, it's an increase of 2,756. So what we're saying is even if we were to do at my table where it stands now at $3, we would still be below the average of the comps that you presented.
Right.
Exactly.
And then that,
Right.
you're exactly right.
Exactly.
So here's the next challenge. Slightly different from other CBAs that we may be talking about. I know that Chief has brought to our attention a lot of fees and things that the fire department, for whatever reason, may or may not have been collecting in the past. Chief, can you shed some light on some of those, please? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, a lot of it is not the way our inspection fees have not been being charged for commercial businesses. Plans reviews, although the city charges for a permit fee for review, they're not charging for the life safety plans review. If they are, there's no way of tracking what's being charged. A lot of the, case in point, when you go to a major construction offers, like we just had recently over on Delaney, I touched that site every day for 6 months straight. And then the gentleman who filled in as an interim fire marshal touched it again for another 3 months to make sure that we're, that's time being spent, man hours being spent out. And there's no way to quantify how much of that time is being recouped and being, put on the user fees as opposed to the citizens taking that on.
So with no increase, assuming that there's 0 increase, this is what the monetary dollars look like if we were to do these increases. Right, so this is $1 per hour, $2, $3 per hour. Telling people this is what the total budget effect would be of those.
How many hours a month do y'all work? So how many hours a month are y'all supposed to work?
Let me make that math.
Yeah, we didn't.
So-
Essentially, we take
24, it's
27.
sometimes we work 10
Okay.
days, sometimes we work 9 days, 24-hour shifts. So say 240, sometimes a little bit less than that, depends on the month.
So I guess what I'm getting at, is what I found just in being firefighter, our hourly salaries were always lower than the PDs.
Yeah.
Because of our work schedule.
Mhm.
So it's if you're looking at it from that standpoint,
I took 2756 divided by 12, and it comes up to 229.6.
Right. And that
Rounded
varies,
to 230.
that varies on the pay period for the month. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. 96 and 120, those
So
are
you
two
may have
different,
that number, those numbers, like with PD, they would just,
half of that.
you may have to add a little more to kind of get where you want.
And we recognize that too. How, you know, watching nurse, right? Obviously, we're going to, you
I
know,
mean, it's even evident in the per capita. You were at 293, you were at 168. So, I mean, just by area. That's also the budget. and so forth.
yeah, so I think we're on the same page there, for sure. Those numbers don't lie. You know, we know that.
So I go back and I ask the question, and I'll ask it. I know I asked it the other day when we first had the first call. If you had to pick between dollars, and I know it's a catch-22 question. If you had to pick between dollars or bodies, or combination of both, which one do you pick? Because what this study doesn't show is the fact that you're right now, according to my notes from the last meeting, you're still 9 bodies short, correct?
9 bodies, like, what do you mean 9 bodies short?
You need at least another 9 firefighters to
Yeah,
three per, if I remember, 3 per shift times
So-
3 shifts.
Right.
yeah, we,
So to rid of a one-man truck problem.
yeah,
Right.
Right.
So
That-
at least address the minimum.
yeah,
Right,
Exactly.
absolutely. And our only argument was that it's gonna be very difficult, if not nearly impossible, to attract employees to those 9 positions when everybody else is beating us out on pay.
yeah.
Because that's what everybody's gonna look
We're
at.
not even-
Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. They're scrolling through the websites that we have for our position. And they're like, nope, nope. And it's almost like when you go like Walmart.com, from cheapest to more expensive, you know, and that's what they're doing. They're scrolling, they're scrolling. Right.
Paramedics is extremely short. And I mean, in the last few years, we've lost some really, really good men and women that like being here, but I mean, they can't pay the bills, you know?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If you said they like being here, just again, not holding this, but if we were to match or come close to matching or exceed, I don't know what they're making, where they're at now, would they consider coming back?
We have one that come back just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
Because,
it was an increase from when he left till now.
yeah,
And he'd come back here because of the atmosphere.
Yesterday was his first day.
Yesterday was his first day.
because our environment there,
It's
we're
supportive.
family,
Right.
you know? And that's the thing, we're coming here because our family is telling us like, hey, you know, it's been years, we have had raises, we're struggling, you know, and that's why we're here and we're trying, and we know there's a problem with the department, with the staff and the money. And that's why we're trying to get it to where we want to get where we gain on both, get a happy medium between both.
So the scary thing about this too is this is before this data was obviously put before inflation. We know a lot of our neighboring cities are gonna come back at different increases, so very likely you'll be further in the hole if something is not done soon. Okay. I am,
So, yeah, another way of putting it, I guess would be like if you're short manpower already, you're looking to hire some people. It doesn't do any good to say, instead of giving you a pay raise, we're gonna give you 9 more people because we can't fill these yet.
Right.
So we
How
gotta
many-
attract to get fully staffed.
how many vacancies do we currently have right now?
One.
That's good. That was much higher.
We were talking, I can't, sometimes my union negotiations run together, but at one of them, we were talking about how because of that, because you can't fill them, you may not want to
Yeah, we were
add all
talking about,
9 in one. You may want to say we add 3 in 23 or 3 in
Yeah.
24. Slowly.
yeah, because
build
when
up.
you have them, say you go ahead and approve 9 and you're 1 short. So you're actually having to put it in the budget for that whole 9, that money is encumbered already.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do you any good if you can't hire them to put them on the payroll.
And the thing is, if you look at like January, February, we were very, 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 very short. We were working large amounts of hours of overtime to maintain the shifts and stuff. And, you know, we worked well with the chiefs and everybody to go recruit people. And we recruited some awesome people that are new. They're going to school, going to get their paramedics. And we're concerned that if they get their paramedics, they're gonna be like, all right, well,
See you later.
see you later. I'm gonna go to this other department. Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what's happening. Like they come in here, they work with us for a little bit, they go get their paramedics, and then they're gone, they go work for somewhere else.
But we've got an overwhelming amount of people now that kind of see eye to eye with the visions that the union elected officials have. You know, they're starting to get on board with what we're trying to do here.
So if we were incrementally too, let's look at the bigger picture. If we were, and again, I'm using dollars because percentages get skewed by
Mhm.
rank and so forth. So just for the sake of math, at roughly, if we were to do a $3 increase every year for the next, we said 3 years, because that equates to whatever the percentage is according to what you presented on your sheet. That's roughly for just the number of folks that we have now, not including the new body, but just the number we have now. That'd be roughly $250,000 per year for the next 3 years. That's what the increase would be. Okay, so
That, say again?
it'd be $250,000 necessary per year for the next 3 years to try to meet, can't even meet what they're asking for, but that's only an increase of roughly, again, going by rough math, $8,200. So that would still bring them at the beginning rate. If we add this to this, it would bring them to roughly 56,000. It would still be, yeah, it would still be
Below that, but it'll be
below, but
within
it'll
that,
be within, it'll be within
the base salary.
right.
So people would actually like consider, you know, they come here, their environment, and they'd be willing to stay, because you know that matters a lot. When you go into a fire service, we live together for hours, 24 hours. You sleep together. We're a family, and, you know, and that's the main thing about it, and that's what we have this environment. But also at the end of the day, we do have to feed our children. You know,
Sure.
we have to pay our house, our cars.
Only because we know it's gonna come up, and you're gonna hear it throughout this process. The idea of, and I know I brought it up at the last one, but volunteers and part-timers.
Yes, sir.
Can you discuss that again for those that may be listening, who may have not?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're absolutely not gonna entertain that idea. And just to be blunt with you, you know, to keep moving forward here. All three of us on this side have had part-time jobs in our careers. That destroys what we've built so far. What we've worked with so little up until this point, and still manage to have sort of the, you know, the environment we do, would come crumbling down in a matter of weeks with that. And you don't want that in one of your departments. And it's not the people are great, but they're dedicated to their primary job, just like as we are when we work part-time. When Yuri came through, they were calling, hey, can you come help us? We can't. That's our primary job, it's our insurance, right? It's our benefits. You don't get none of that. So I'll drop that job all day long to be here for this city. And that's exactly what you're going to get.
We're gonna be.
We may
pulling
generate
overtime.
more overtime than we already have when they don't show up. So that could actually cost more than the investment in an actual full-time employee. And with a third of the work actually getting out of them. So no, that's in our experience. We talked about this earlier today. That's never a good thing.
Because a part-timer, pretty much, they're coming from their full-time job. The mayor knows this, you know, you work, say, depending on your schedule, you work at 24, you get run all night. You go to your part-time job, they're basically going to show up, have checked off their truck and they're going to want to go straight to bed. We don't do that. And it's our full-time job. We're doing stuff like we wear different hats. We're officers, but we also work. We fix our trucks, fix the stations. We got to do inspections on gears. Like we do like so many jobs, and getting one of those, he ain't gonna do that. It's just gonna be somebody that's gonna just honestly poison the rest of our department, because they'll be like, oh, well, I can come in and not do anything. Well, since he's doing, I'm gonna do the same thing. So it's just gonna destroy, like
Right. You know,
Martin said, is
a more detailed account of what I'm talking about. But I mean, you can trust in our experience through the years that it's just not a good idea. It's not a good look for a city within, or a department within your city. It's just not.
Yeah, I've been employed in Cloverleaf when they used to be part-time. I used to work there. We'd have guys from a bigger department next door that would come and work part-time. And we'd show up at 6:30 in the morning And I'd be sitting there, there was only 2 people there. And the guy would say, oh, I just got a phone call from Rowan, I got overtime. I'll tell him, you're not gonna call and tell me, no, I don't care. And just take off. And I'd have to call and say, hey, we need to get somebody else over now. I'm by myself now. I mean, and I've seen it time and time again, and overtime just, it doesn't work. I mean, it does, not overtime, but part-time.
And same true for volunteers.
Oh, yeah, even worse.
Historically unreliable,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
You get, that's not something we can bet on,
One of the things
that
about
hopefully
volunteers-
somebody will show up and help me.
and it's dangerous, even with volunteers, even more dangerous, because they don't get the training that a certified firefighter gets and training in medical, so now
And
you put volunteers, you're basically lowering the standards for the
we're
citizens.
moving backwards at that
Yeah,
point.
we're moving way backwards to where we're at.
At some cities, I'll give you a prime example where I'm from. In Vernon, Texas, a combo department has been for a very long time. And at its peak, there was 6 active members that would occasionally show up for either training days or actual incidents. They took up a whole side of our fire station with lockers and gear that we had to provide for them. It's a lot of money.
And our issue,
Maybe show up to 1 or 2 fires a year out of dozens of fires there every year. It's actually a pretty active place.
I mean, the big deal, like in Baytown, they used to be part volunteer, part paid. And in 92, they disbanded the volunteers because they draw a pension. It's not a big pension, but they draw a pension from the city when they retire. And so most of them were industrial workers. So if you're at work, when a call comes out, you get to tag that you were there. You get credit for being there, even though you didn't go. And we never had volunteers showing up, but yet we were paying out pensions to these people. So we just disbanded them all together because a lot of times everybody's trying to work now anyway. And if they're at work, they can't respond to a call. So it's kind of hard to tie up money into a 50-50 or maybe 75% chance they're not going to be there.
Right.
That's the big issue with volunteers now. That's why all these ESDs, they used to all be volunteer departments. Now they're all going to ESDs and getting paid.
We have one of those ESDs here that just did that, and
Yeah.
they're paying quite well.
Fresno Fire Department, ESD 7, and they're paying, they got rid of them, and now they're fully paid.
I've seen the trend throughout where a lot of folks are moving away from volunteer. But I just wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah,
For the sake of anybody that may have had that question to ask. I know we're gonna get it. I would definitely get that answer. So, or that question. Excuse me.
Not from council. He's
Just
Right.
in general.
Republican.
No, I'm sure.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
From the seat that we're holding right now, we've got to look at it from every.
Right.
Right, to see that. Now, I'm gonna ask the next tough question, especially since now folks have voted with the rollback. They voted and they've been very clear as to what they want us to do. And we uphold it. We uphold the democratic process that took place. Having said that, we're now in a position where nobody's arguing that you guys need to be paid more.
Right.
Nobody's arguing that you need more bodies. But before we added a single body to this, we're looking at $256,000 to even bring you up to where you need to be for year 1. But now the cost at, let's just say 57,000, right? 56,903.
Mhm.
If we were to get to that, right?
Mhm.
We take that times 9. I mean, that's another, not that, again, we would do it for the full year or the first year, but just for the sake of math, I take, if we were to get to that average of 56,903 times 9, looking at an additional $512,000, an additional $500,000 that would be necessary for you to have the 9 bodies that you're essentially requesting. What I did is I took the base salary of, if we got it to the median of 56,903, if we were to get there.
Yeah.
If I took that and I multiplied it by 9, then that's where I get that 512,127. Okay. So next question is before we add a single body, before we add a single red set, what we're essentially looking at is we need $750,000 to get you where you baseline would need to be. All right, 750,000, 750, 756, 758 is where we need to. Yep. 768, sorry. So call it $750,000 to get you guys where it is. Obviously, that would increase the per capita rate. What I would like to do, if it's just for the sake of this, if you can provide it for our next meeting, is to look at the per capita of each one of these cities that you compare. So all the ones in the near vicinity that you compare. And look at it to say, okay, their budget is this much, they have this many residents, this is the per capita rate.
Yeah. And why that rate is that way and where that rate goes,
Right.
there's a lot of information. That may take more than a week.
Well, no, what I mean is we don't need to go into too much depth.
Okay.
But just go into literally saying, this is their fire budget, their total
Right.
fire budget. And
These
this
are
is
the population.
divided by the population.
Okay, so we did a comparison list on reasonably and justifiable losses to our city, to other departments. That's why we did those cities. Now you're requesting physical, just the numbers on cities, right?
Just budget,
Just take the budget.
take their budget.
Just,
So for example, let's say Baytown's budget is 5 million for the sake of it.
Right.
And they have 50,000 residents.
Right.
5 million divided by 50,000, that's the per capita number.
And what does that change for what we're able to
well,
accomplish here?
what it's doing is showing our community. We as Lamarck, I'm just throwing numbers out. We spend $5 per resident on fire.
Right.
But Hitchcock, just throwing.
Right, just for example.
Spends $8 per resident. I think what we're gonna find is, we're gonna be at the bottom of that list.
Right,
And what we would then be able to articulate to our residents is, we just don't spend enough money. We don't invest enough financially, physically in our fire department.
Okay.
Or in our police department, to show them, that we have work to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
it does
Because-
actually, it does, but that's why I asked, because
Yeah.
it didn't make sense
Yeah,
initially.
yeah.
So, but you have a different viewpoint than us,
I have to see it from where folks aren't gonna understand percentages,
right?
right? Folks are gonna say, well, you're in these tough economic times, you wanna add 5% to the, no, it's not about percentages. The percentages get skewed, right? They just get skewed in how you look at things. Instead, I like to look at it and say, here's what everybody, forget what their rate of pay is. Here's what it costs per human being in that city to provide this service. Here's what we're paying. Okay? And that's just it.
Because we found, and you all have been in the city doing this roadmap, we found that so many people put so many different things in the middle of the dialogue and the conversation, and most of those things aren't accurate. And it starts to confuse people. So if we say that we comped, like yesterday, the PD was using Live Oak, which is a city of San Antonio, Austin, as a comp based on crime stats and stuff like that. So a lot of times people try to discredit those things, or they try to twist them and turn them. And it just starts to cloud what the public knows and sees. And then you guys, PD or whoever, they lose out on the end. But we're trying to find a way to basically easily say to the community in a way that it can't be distorted. This is what we're investing. This is what everybody else is investing. Do you see a problem with this? You get what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because we know, let me say this, let me be clear. We know that our fire department is underpaid, period, full stop. We know that our fire department is undermanned, and I'm gonna ask Chief Merriman a question, and then Jody, I want you to articulate for me, since you're a fire captain, what it looks like and what it feels like at 12 noon or 12 midnight for you to get a structure fire drop when your crew is at the hospital doing CPR. What does it look like to get in the truck, drive it, pull up, get a supply line, put gear on it, however you do it? I don't even know how to do that because I've never done it. But I want to ask Chief Merriman, we talked about that number of people that have left, and you suspect it's because of pay.
He has that information.
So you'll have to forgive me, my computer was running slow, but I went back to 2019 and I found we have, from what I can find, 26 people have left the Lamarque Fire Department. 12 of them left for more pay.
Wait, just one split second. 26, you're saying people, but are those considered of the 31 positions of that caliber, meaning they're firefighters?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So we've, in 3 years, we've almost had an injury numerically, not that everybody has left, but you've had almost a full turnover of your staff in 3 years. Between 31 and 26, that's what I'm trying to show.
Right.
Almost in 3 years, a full turnover of your entire staff. And and of that, 12 of those 26 have been because of pay.
Yes, sir.
At least 50%.
For best I can figure.
50% of all of our department losses are paid. In roughly 2 years.
29,
Mhm.
19 and
2019.
2022.
Mhm.
We're still in 2022, so we're
Right.
technically
Still
29.
have more to go.
And that information is probably a year old because Miss Patty and I had a conversation about, the reason I had that information is Miss Patty and I had a conversation about, but probably, that's probably a year old because that was probably back when I first became the interim chief as to the number of people that were leaving. So we did the research. I looked through org charts and found all the way back from 2019 to 2021 that doesn't count anybody that has left. And I don't have that number. I'd have to research for 21 moving forward. But it was 26 at the time and 12 had left for more pay.
So we know we have an issue with pay because we know half of those that have left the department have left for better pay. That includes retirees, that includes career changes, that includes people moving away,
Mhm.
all sorts of other things. Half of your departures are paid. That's a clue. Jody, because I don't know, even though I fought fire, explain to me how one person drives a truck, arrives at the scene, puts your gear on, which I don't know how you're doing that. Lay a supply line, lay the direct attack line, put the pump in gear, incident command, shut off all the power. How do you do all of that with one body at a structure fire, knowing that fire doubles in intensity every 17 seconds?
You don't. You do as much as you can, and you try to keep screaming on the radio for your mutual aid. And by the graces of people like Reyes and some others in our department who will show up because they got it on their phone and they know we don't have the help. I've done it. I've done it.
And even still, that's gonna take Reyes to get out of his bed,
Yes. Get dressed,
throw on something,
get to the station, grab a
figure
vehicle.
out where you are,
Mhm.
get to the station, get his gear. And then, so now you're talking at least a 10-minute proposition at best, even if Reyes is the fastest of them all.
Yeah, it's one of those bad juju things you just don't really want to talk about a lot.
Yeah.
We've been skating by, we've been getting lucky, but I think our time's running short.
What does that look like, Jody, as it relates to us as a homeowner? So I have property and I want my property protected. How much more damage would my property incur because there's only one person on the engine versus even three?
Even three. Again, percentages can be skewed, I guess, occasionally, but that's 75, 85% that fire can be stopped and it's staged where we found it versus cleaning up the foundation for the rebuild, which is typically, you're squirting from the outside, it's what we call it. It's not politically correct, but putting the wet stuff on the red stuff from the outside doesn't do the job. Right? It wastes a lot of water and time. It doesn't do the job. You have to go in
Damages
and
out.
find that fire. And we can't do that with a one-person job. We simply can't.
If I could speak.
So
on
for
that,
the homeowner, yes, it's absolutely
It's,
it's detrimental to them.
like, I can tell you, we have 4 people in Baytown. I'm since retired now, but when I was working there, we had 4 people. And it's almost like a well-oiled machine. As that truck stops and that driver pulls that parking brake, that door's already open over here and that firefighter grabbing that line, running to the door. And by the time the driver gets to the pump panel, he's ready to just pull the line that's charged and they're going in the door. And on this one, you gotta stop. You gotta get out, pull the hose, stretch it out, go back to the truck, put your gear on, put it in gear, and then go get your truck. And hopefully nothing happens to the line while you're inside.
Or the truck, because you're not keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
It's what we call ghost pumping.
Yep.
And it's
Very dangerous.
very dangerous.
So you can run out of water.
You can break that
And
whole, however
The way people
$1,000
run-
truck that is. And
Yeah, the way people are so malicious nowadays, somebody could go over and grab an axe off the truck and just go cut that line in half just because that's how people are
Start
nowadays.
pulling levels on the compound.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Trying to help.
It inhibits us from doing fast attacks. You know what I mean? Like you said, the fire spreads rapidly. When you have a 4-man truck or 3-man truck, you got that guy to pull that line, do a fast attack to cool the environment down. So God forbid there is a fire in your house, we can contain it to one section so you can save everything else. You know what I mean? But so much time is lost waiting for Texas City to come, waiting for Santa Fe to come, you know, waiting for other people to come in,
Oh,
that
yeah.
it could cause
And your numbers, you're
traumatic damage.
31, you know, you have to break that down. That's not what's showing up, you know. That's the 2 a.m, both ambulances out, which is very common. I mean, I think I said the last time, how many, 50% of the time I stay alone at Central Station while I'm on shift. And we have long transport times with traffic. We have long wait times in hospitals because they're full. So a lot of times, I mean, it's not just a one-man station.
Can we talk to that as well? Not just the one-man station, the one-man truck. The actual international fire code, so not just national, but the actual, if you will, governing body or the doctrine that you guys follow states that for a truck like yours, you're supposed to have 4 bodies.
Yes.
Yes,
At a
sir.
minimum, 4 bodies.
Yeah.
At a minimum, 4 bodies.
Yeah.
And we've been operating with 1.
Mhm.
Again,
And this is a mess.
This is really tough to.
And this is a mess that Chief Merriman inherited, by the way. It wasn't a part of that decision.
How did we get here?
That's up to your chiefs. That's also a turnover rate as well. If you look at those.
And
I've been here 4 years.
Well,
and
no,
I've seen
it's
3
not,
chiefs.
it's, what I mean is we added a second fire station because of need,
Mhm.
right? The
Mhm.
city is growing. You know, it has gone from 14,000 in 2010. I don't have the census numbers in front of me, but whatever they were in 2010 to now, the number of calls have increased, so the need for a second station arose, but we didn't staff it.
We did. We had a plan with former Chief Gerald Brown and former City Manager Carol Butler. We crafted a plan to phase in, to have immediate staffing at that station and then to phase in permanent staffing at that station. The city manager that showed up here after Carol Butler, we all know who I'm talking about, scrap that plan. I don't know if former Chief Wyman had anything to do with that. I don't know that part of it. But I do know there was a plan under Grimm and Butler, and that plan was scrapped under Jackson.
And that's what I meant by turnover. Think about the number of people in their positions and how powerful and influential they are. And when it switches, everything gets lost.
That's understandable, but still, the bare minimum.
that staffing went from a 15-person department to a 27-person department on shift. Because when we were one station, we had 5 personnel per shift.
And I want to preface the fact that to keep talking about the rollback, and it's not just a rollback, because the truth is that the rollback itself would still not have been enough to take care of all our issues. Okay, so let's just, I mean, that's just so everybody understands, and anybody that might be watching at home, it still wouldn't have been enough. And this is what is mind-boggling to me, the fact that this was not, I mean, it's just what this, you know, like we talked about property damage, but what this relates to is not just property damage, but longer call times. I mean, it's also, it's gonna take longer to respond to calls, which means, and I say this again, the other day, or I don't know how many months ago it was now, there was a gentleman that you talk about one-man station. At this point, next door, there was a no-man station. The person came and drove up here in distress. A resident of Lamarque was banging on the door for help, couldn't call, whatever the case was, drove himself here. He was in excruciating pain. Nobody was there to answer, didn't have the wherewithal, comes next door to City Hall. I happened to be there, it was a Friday. It was, I don't know, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, right? Everybody was out on calls. We didn't have an AED to start performing CPR should he need it. there weren't enough bodies to address it because everybody was out on calls and wherewithal. We had to put them on the floor and call. And when you're in those moments of distress, seconds seem like hours.
So,
Minutes seem like days. And I myself, in the moment of distress, said, what's taking everybody so long? Mind you, I understand it from the inside, but those seconds seemed like an eternity. And I wasn't even the one in pain. I can only imagine what this person was going through.
That's exactly, to answer your question, for us, that's exactly what it feels like for Mayor Bell's question, to show up by yourself when you're supposed to be the person and the entity that's supposed to know what to do and be able to do it, but you can't. One of the worst feelings in the world for any firefighter is helplessness. We're supposed to be the ones helping. Yet, sometimes I find myself, not just here, but in my career in general, helpless. And that's an awful feeling for someone who does this for a living.
Let's talk about this one, one more thing. God forbid you show up, you're this one man engine, right? You show up at a fire and you're doing the job of 3 people, technically, right? 3 or technically 4 people, because if you're supposed to be a 4-man engine, show up by yourself and you're doing this. You do that. Talk to me about going in now.
Oh, maybe, okay.
You can't. Why? Again, I'm asking this question because I want everybody that may be listening to be educated on this. Why can't you go in?
there is a 2 in, 2 out rule. So if you have to have 2 firefighters go in, you have to have 2 firefighters outside in the case that something happens to them. You have building collapse, they get disoriented. People don't realize, smoke, you can't see anything. It's not like the movies where they walk in and have a flashlight, they're looking inside the house, it's completely dark, wearing a mask, you have limited air. You have to be mentally strong because you can't see, you might lose, you might get lost. You need to have 2 people to go inside to help you. You can't, if you go one person, the only way that we would go in, and there's no questions asked for going in, is if I show up and mama's telling me my baby's in there, guess what? We're going in there by ourselves.
Yeah, life safety.
But isn't that technically a violation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me ask, and I'll, again, only because I read a case study on this.
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, there was, and I may or may not know the case. There was a situation like that where a firefighter violated his own rule.
Yep.
Went in by himself.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, he passed. And because he didn't follow protocols, his family did not get his life insurance.
Correct.
And have you read this case studies?
Yep.
I have several of them. Oklahoma City, California, San Francisco, California,
Yep.
where those firefighters were did save a life and were terminated and went to court and was reinstated, back paid. There's been several successful cases
So
from the idea that they chose to go outside the rules for life safety. And now there's lots and lots and lots being done about that right now behind the scenes as far as state and national is concerned. It's a big talk, right? It's been a big talk for some time.
of course.
Policies typically always operate off the NFPAs, but then it's always, and Chief could probably answer this better than I can because I've never been a chief, but by organizational need, citizen need, things fluctuate a little bit. That's one of the things that doesn't budge, right? It hasn't budged in quite some time, I'm sure. The 2 in, 2 out.
Yeah,
That's never been adjusted, right? That's always been a thing.
And one more thing, I'm just curious because I know that we're short. And I know that there's a very big need nationally, right? That there's just a shortage of folks doing this work nationally. Right? More people are shifting to work at home, changing careers, whatever. Fine. Another question that I have is since you did pull this list of vicinity from us that has similar comparisons, I would like to know if it's possible, just for the sake of whatever, for just describing data. Because in this case, you just brought me, it's damn if you do and damn if you don't, right? Damn if you go in there and save them, because you could lose your life and your family wouldn't be taken care of, and it's just a selfless act, and okay. Or you're outside, you feel helpless, you got people saying, why aren't you going inside? That's also a life safety thing. It's gonna be like, what are you doing? Now, they might try to take it upon themselves because you're erring on the side of caution to not go inside. They may go in there and also lose their life as a result of it. And that's a decision you guys face every time that you may respond to a call.
With a 3-second differential to make that decision. We don't get to sit there and tear apart
Okay.
the politics of it. We
Okay.
have to make a choice right then and there, you know?
Okay. Next question. Of all the cities they provided comparisons for, I'm curious to know how short they are.
Okay.
Because that's another question that might be asked. Well, you compare this city and their budget and their per capita rate, but how short are they from what the numbers they're supposed to be?
Okay.
And the reason why I'm asking this is because I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. This,
And you may have to find a way to phase this in. This 2 in, 2 out. Be creative.
Sure.
Maybe year one, you have 2 on the ambulance, 2 on the ambulance and west side, 2 on the ambulance, east side, 2 on the east side engine, 2 on the west side engine, year one. And that would, in essence, effectively, it will be slow and not optimal, but at least maybe year one, we achieve that. And then after that, we build slowly. Because at least we would have found a way to have a 2 in, 2 out.
We clearly didn't get that way overnight.
Right.
I would think they won't expect us to
Sure.
fix it overnight.
Right, no, not at all. You know, and yes, it's our job to kind of explain, like you said, 2 people on boxes on each side of town. We may get lucky. And if I drop at that time, and I say lucky because somebody's stuff's burning down. We don't want anybody's stuff to burn down.
Sure.
We don't want to have a need to have to go put out fires. Prevention is more important to us than fighting fire. But if someone's probably does catch on fire, hopefully we have those, everybody what we call in service or in house. And we will have an 8-man turnout with mutual aid on the way. That's
Until.
good.
It's
That's
ideal.
significant. That's good
Yeah.
for us where we're currently at. You know, but right, you have to factor in that 1 or 2 ambulances may be out. And that's
We want
half
to
the
be where
crew.
if both ambulances are running and a call drops, even if they are split
Right,
because of fiscal reasons right now, we want to know that 2 folks are coming from east, 2
Yep.
folks are coming from west, and eventually we will have that 2 in, 2 out.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
At
absolutely.
least that's a first quick fix to this.
To do that, though, we're talking about adding at least 3 bodies.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So your 9 stays the same that you were talking about earlier. Yes.
3 bodies.
Eventually, we can get that to eventually, like Mayor suggested, eventually go 3, maybe 6, and then 9. To get to this number. With the understanding that in 3 years, the population will be way bigger than it is now, your
Right.
call volume is gonna be higher than it is, and so on and so forth. But we'll
And
gradually.
with the, also with the other understanding that what we're just kind of discussing and what the guys are saying, that would even be fine for, for the first year. That's gonna put more wear and tear on our new engine, because now when anytime we used to call it a 1 alarm. Y'all call it a 1 alarm up there, fire, structure fire.
We call it structure fire. We just, it depends on the gravity of it,
So
If we-
anytime there's a potential structure fire, not even a confirmed, not flames visible, not smoke visible, but anytime somebody calls in and says something's burning in the house, right? That call drops, that means both engines are moving. That's not only wear and tear on our vehicle, that is putting the citizens in jeopardy because they're trying to navigate emergency traffic. That's putting our drivers and our fire crews in jeopardy because folks are trying to navigate traffic, right? So that's the other risk that we're gonna have to deal with. But at the end of the day, at least we would have found a scenario to keep them as safe as we can with the dollars we have right now.
I was just looking at the 2 and 2 out, gonna provide the information for y'all, the literature on it.
Did you want to say something on this?
I'll have to double check, but none of those cities have a job posting on TCFP the last time I checked.
And
Of the over 100 job postings on TCFP,
So those cities are, I guess
So-
you understand them to be fully staffed.
Baytown, Fort Bend, Galveston, Texas City, Webster, and Westview.
well, this one I know is fixing to open another station.
So they're gonna have.
Well,
They're
not
gonna come
only.
looking, I
not-
believe.
And those
The
are,
one in Fort Bend just went full time, so they're going to be looking for people.
and they're 3-4 man engines.
Well, no, and also to that point,
From
that's
managers.
vacancies, right? But what I'm also looking at, like right now, we have 1 vacancy, right? So we look, on paper, we look great. We're only missing 1 person, but the truth is, we're 9 bodies short.
Yeah.
My question is how many bodies short are the rest of these cities?
So all those departments they either have 4, at bare minimum 3.
And that's the data that we could show that, to show that.
And,
for-
and usually departments that skate by with 3, they have multiple stations. So when they're dropping a structure fire,
Yeah.
they're dropping 3 stations, which means I got 3 people on this truck, but the truck that's coming, they also have. 3.
Yeah, you got 3 trucks coming, plus a ladder truck coming, and you got an ambulance coming, there's gonna be a medic standby. So you, just like that, you get
You
get-
your 2 in, 2 out.
yeah, easily 16, 18 people right at the back.
Let me ask you a question. I know we have mutual aid agreements with some of the areas. And if we could talk about that for a second before I have one other follow-up question. that we could raise.
So that's a double-edged sword. So we mutual aid a lot. Hitchcock and Texas City, because Hitchcock has 1 ambulance and it's Galveston EMS, and they only have 1 ambulance there. We mutual aid Texas City a whole lot. So our ambulances are gone all the time. Like sometimes one of the ambulances runs 7 calls for Texas City on a day. We don't have them, they're gone. But we can't tell them, no, hey, you know what, today we can't run that many calls for it, because guess what? If we catch a fire and we don't have them, then we're screwed. Or we have a 3rd medical call, we're screwed.
Well, we talked about this the first time around, the fact that they don't call us for mutual aid fires as well.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Because-
and since our last call, I actually did some follow-up on that too.
Mhm.
And the truth is, yeah, they just don't bother calling us.
They don't want to hurt us anymore than we're already hurting.
Yeah.
They just don't bother calling us because of that. So we rely on others more than they can rely on us.
Mhm.
So we're not doing our fair share when it comes to that.
Right, no, not at all. And it's people like, Reyes and I that meet with other presidents, and we try to keep the relationships alive. Like I do the same with Texas City. Me and that president, we contact each other quite often. We're good friends. I mean, we're all in it for the same reasons. Speaking of Texas City, I did hear a rumor that they opened, not a rumor, they opened the station, right? That's not a rumor, but the rumor is we're paying better. We'll come scoop up your leftovers.
Yeah.
No
Well,
problem.
not even the leftovers, they're gonna come straight
For the people we have,
Exactly.
right? So,
Yeah.
fire speaking, it's a very small world. Like I moved here from the sticks, so I thought this was a big city. No, this is
Just for
it's small.
point of reference, from July of last year until
I struggle. I just struggle. Sorry.
July of this year, our medics have responded to 521 mutual aid calls outside of the city, and we've responded to only 29 fire calls. That's from July of last year to July of this year.
Wow.
And the only reason I have those numbers is because I pull them every year for the county firefighters contract that we do in July of every year.
And we're obligated to Chief Merriman's point,
course.
that county contract obligates us to provide mutual aid
Absolutely.
to the best of our ability.
But the fact that we
Yes.
continue to do so, we count on our brothers and sister cities around us, and they provide the help, but in comparison, we're not doing, we're doing a lot, but we're still not doing our fair share. And that's just an understanding agreement that is just national. You normally have these shared agreements with your neighbors because of shortage.
Yeah, so when they call for mutual aid, it's because they need personnel. And they're not gonna call to get 1 truck and 1 person. I mean, and then it takes.
Because you can have
protect
too
away
many
from
trucks
Lamar.
at the
you know,
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah, that could become a problem.
so that was their biggest deal in Texas City. They said they
And
didn't
that's
call
where
Lamar
we-
because they didn't want to
I got
deplete y'all's resources.
Okay. Last question, tough question. We've identified the need, even if we did 3 bodies, you're still, the math is still 85,000 for 3 bodies, way more than that, right? 512,000, that's a ginormous number if we were to add that, because that's obviously the 56,903 that we would add for a new body does not include their gear, their benefits, pension, insurance, and so forth. So that's just salary. So that's obviously that's a skewed number. But even if it was to look at that number as to what that cost would be, we're still looking at probably $250,000 a year just to add 3 bodies, plus another $250 per year, still looking at $500,000 a year times, the next 3 years in perpetuity until we get the numbers we need to be. My next question is, and it's a tough question, but I'm gonna ask is, you're looking at a budget that is 3.1 right now, right? 3,141,397. We're looking at, you mentioned the pot's not getting bigger to add the numbers you need just to be as part of a 3-year plan to get to compliance where we want to be. If we were to do something like that, and we need to say we need to cut somewhere or increase, right? I mean, there's a combination of both, either increase revenue, which doesn't really exist in government for the most part, but either increase revenue or decrease expenses by that number. What are we willing to do more of to increase revenue, which is pretty non-existent? I know the chief is working on some things through the software and billing and so forth, or what are we willing to lose? And the department is already, running at bare bones. Is there anything that you would say here?
Not that I could think of. I used, just to put it in perspective, your pie chart. I was thinking about that this morning. And really the conclusion I came to was, I'll take your pie chart and I'll take a slice out. And we've been gnawing on that crust for about 3 to 4 years now, and it's almost gone. That's the perspective I could have for you. Yeah, we'll have nothing left to put back into. We've
Yeah.
gotten too far behind.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate. It really is. It's called bargaining. I understand that. But to
Don't
be quite
got,
honest with you, we don't have any to bargain with at this point.
we're barely hanging on as it is.
But you got to keep in mind, you got a lot of good people that are
Well,
still
I-
here and still doing this job,
I-
even with those circumstances, because we love what we do.
I'm surprised. I am completely surprised.
So you wanted us to work on the per capita and also shortages.
If you can.
Yeah, I mean,
If you can provide that data, I mean, it's.
we need to talk about a date though too, because
Yeah, we'll try to get, we're gonna try our best to get this information.
you want
'cause
to make
I think you
the
may
last
already
meeting,
have
you
some of
can't,
this data
so
that-
we need to discuss that. So we can do that.
The 22nd.
From the city department.
Or the
22nd.
20 Yeah,
22nd.
So what
Yeah,
we're planning on doing, I know we're gonna take a break here, so we can kind of absorb what you
Sure.
all have said, you can absorb what we said, and,
Sure.
talk a little more. But what we're also planning is Monday night, we have a meeting. And on that agenda will be executive session where so will brief the entire council on both statuses of both negotiations. So as much as we can get, and that's why we're asking a lot of questions,
Mhm.
because we want to give that to the council and show every angle, every perspective.
Yeah.
They already know, I guarantee you, they already know that there's some issues.
Yeah.
But we want to give them something to articulate to the residents.
And this information, when we obtain it, we'll get it to you prior to the next meeting. Is that possible?
Yeah, you would, I would say that you would be able to email Jen,
Okay,
and then she would
okay.
disseminate it throughout,
Well, speaking of which, you may need to reschedule the already set date for the next meeting. If we can talk about that.
I was gonna
Grace
s-
couldn't make it for the next one.
Yeah, I was
Talked
gonna
about-
see, if it was possible, maybe the 22nd.
I think right now it is the 18th.
No, I don't mind that as long as it's available. We can find out.
Right.
And we could, I mean, that's an administrative.
And then resend out a,
You want to take a caucus and try to figure all that out?
yeah,
Let's caucus and then we can figure out the dates and
Sure.
all that, and then
Okay.
think about what y'all said.
Do me a favor, if you could, while we're on break, we're gonna take a break real quick. If you could please get with Miss Patty. Miss Patty, if you could get with Miss Jennifer and see if it works with everybody's schedule, including the ones that are joining us online. So we can get you that response. before we
Sure.
get to that.
Sure, that'd be great.
And Mr. City Manager, I was just gonna let you know that I was blown away just like you are whenever I took over this position and I found out that y'all are running a one-man engine. I was like, that is crazy. I've never heard of that. So I understand where you're sitting there saying, you know,
I'm
trying to get this in.
I just don't understand it. I know it's been tough economical times and so forth.
And we understand the finances. You can't just say, okay, we're gonna put a woman. You gotta have the money to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we understand all that.
Thank you, guys. If we can take a break. All right, everybody, we're back. Lots to look at, lots to deliberate on. One of the things that I would like, if it's possible, if you guys could help, and Chief, if you can assist in any which way on how we can get that data.
Sure, we actually, Mark, we actually already did one.
I got
Yeah.
one because I'm from Baytown, so I made some calls.
Please.
And so let me make sure that I did it correctly. We got the budget and divided by the population.
Correct.
Okay, so are you talking the whole budget or just for suppression?
His was first.
The entire fire budget.
Fire
The
budget.
whole fire budget. So the fire budget in Baytown is 25 million. And the population is 76,089 according to the 2020.
25 million.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and so it came out to 328.56 per person. If we did just suppression alone, it was $293 a person.
That's triple what we.
And I've got the numbers here if you want them.
Yeah.
So the suppression is 22.3 million. Fire admin is 2.
Hold on, Mark. Hold on, Mark.
Okay,
So, Mark, if you can, just for the sake of this, if you could share this also in writing. I'm sure you guys will follow the rest, but please also do so in writing, and I'll share my notes in writing too.
Yes, sir.
so it's suppression is 22.3 million. Admin is 2.7 million. And the fire marshal's office, 697,000. Which comes out to a total of 25 million.
Admin was what, I'm sorry?
697,000.
No, admin.
Oh, admin was 2.7 million. So admin and suppression are 25 million, then you have 697,000 in the fire marshal's office. I just based it on the 25 million.
How many stations is Baytown here?
7.
We don't even have a fire prevention budget.
Oh, yeah, I was working on it last year. I can't remember the name of the people who approached me. It's totally different.
Produce handwriting. You
Gee,
can.
you don't type it up.
If you can, I'd be interested in seeing the rest. One thing, and I'm remiss for not being here for the last meeting. Did we feel comfortable, I guess, on this side? 75 something.
Yeah, 70.
76,089. And that's according to the 2020
Thank you, sir.
census.
Did we feel comfortable on the cops? Did we feel that the cities shown are comparable comparisons? If that's even, does everybody feel comfortable with that? Because we know that there may be folks that may have questions about the.
Do we
Like
feel
I-
comfortable with the cities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I, for example, I questioned West U outright. I told you guys, I questioned it because I know that area, but amongst everything else, do we feel that they're comps? You feel good on that? Chief, do you feel good on these being actual comps?
For me, go ahead, Chief, I'm sorry.
As far as being comparable to our city, the problem with finding, when you get to finding something that is comparable to our city, most of the cities that are our size do not have a paid fire department. They are volunteer. In this area, the closest to us would be Dickinson with, 21,000 people. Their fire department is volunteer, the BNS is paid. But city also has an operating budget of about $21 million.
2021.
Yeah. So finding a department, finding a city our size with a paid fire department is a challenge.
It's a unicorn. Marque is not like many others.
We're one of only 3 paid departments in Galveston, 3 full-time paid departments in Galveston County. Alvin is
Volunteer. Mhm. And that's,
And the other 3 in Galveston there would be Galveston, Texas City, and us.
yes, sir.
yes.
So we don't really have.
Which is an amenity, is a benefit for our citizens that I don't think that, you know, we communicate to them as often as we should.
You get a package, I mean, you get both, so we do both. We do EMS and fire, so we're combined. So you get both the benefits for it. So, and that list we made is basically the departments that are literally taking our people. That's
I
what it is.
Completely understand for the proximity reasons. Understood.
So you mentioned we can get the data to you via email to Jennifer directly.
Yes, I
Yeah,
just
correct.
confirmed with her earlier.
That should be fairly quick. It should be a very.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just exactly what we talked about, population. But also, if and when speaking to those, I'm curious to find out, not from budgeted, right, and not from vacancies, but as you mentioned, most of them are running 3 or 4 person engines, so we know that they might be 1 person short
Yeah.
on an engine versus we are 3 people short on an engine.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
those openings mean they have different
So
meanings.
do you want the number of, are they running 3 managers or 4 managers, or do you want to know
Shortages.
how,
Shortages.
how many people do they need to be at for?
That's
They're
probably
full
where I'm
staffing.
going.
They're, okay.
Because some might already be, like you might go to Fort Bend, like, yeah, we're already full.
Right.
Okay.
But Galveston might say they're at 3.
Okay.
And Texas City might say, well, we're at 2, right?
Okay.
And we're at 1, whatever. And I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Just because I want to make sure we're comparing, we owe it to the residents to compare apples to apples, right? And make sure that we're saying that correctly. And we know for a fact that it is different, right? It is different. Lamarck is different. Our tax base is different. Our overall assessed value is different. The number of residents we have, our socioeconomics, all of those things are different. Household income, all of that is different. And we understand and respect that. But the fact that our folks are providing the same, similar, or better service than others in an area that probably has a greater need, but are being paid less is unfair. Our residents wouldn't stand for it. And neither should our team, should our staff. So I will wait to get that information. We've got some homework on our end to do as well. I thank you all for your time.
Let me ask
Go
you
ahead.
this, say something before we go in. Have you all, I know we've talked about your needs. Have we, do we feel like we received a formal proposal from the union? Do we know succinctly and clearly their asks, right? We're asking this.
Well,
You feel like you got
I
it?
think based on what examples they gave us and where they're looking to be, they want to just be, they're not even asking to be at the highest.
Yeah.
They're just asking to hopefully not be the lowest.
But do you feel like you know what their asks are?
So.
Based on this, again, if again, I did rough math
So
on it.
I can clarify that. So we put the list. So what we're asking for is 15 to 20% and spaced out in 3 years. And we want at least 3 personnel for,
There you go. I
That's-
just wanted
that's
you to
exactly-
articulate that.
that's
so
exactly-
that it's formal.
yes, sir.
With you saying you need 9.
Yeah, we
but
need
you're-
9.
But you're willing to at least try to get to 3 so that
Exactly.
if Twin didn't have to report together combined, those bodies could be
Exactly.
a 4-man.
And then when we're going to 15-20%, you gotta take in consideration, these other departments are gonna go up too. And you know what I mean?
Oh,
So,
that's why I said that. I said, I noticed all their deadlines are coming up now.
Yeah,
In a couple
so-
months, so they're gonna go up as well.
Yeah, so we discussed when there's a significant change, just go around, to get started and then work out the next couple. years.
Question. Chief, this is more administratively, but did we able to identify anything on those upcoming next funding cycles to try to get more support for firefighters? I know that question is gonna come up.
There are options that we can apply for as soon as the U.S. Fire Administration. I'm on the email list to find out when they open it for the next cycle.
I just, again, we owe that to the taxpayers and residents to make sure that we're doing everything we can to try to offset the cost. We're not just coming up with our hand out. We're trying to find a way to increase revenue, reduce costs, and go out for grant funding or anything else. I mean, it's to the point we might have to start having our fire trucks look like NASCAR and sell sponsorships. Guys, Look,
Brunasini did that in Phoenix.
I'm not, I mean, you guys are laughing, I'm not laughing. We need to figure it out. We need to figure it out. We need to figure it out.
In the fire service, people laugh when they shouldn't because it's.
Well, no, and I get that. And
Yeah,
I
it's a sad
please, I
situation.
understand.
It's a
that
coping-
it's
coping-
just-
Yeah, it's a coping-
But look at this
It
as
is
a
just a
whole. I mean,
situation.
we're doing exactly what I think that everyone wanted to do was to work together. I think this is actually happening. And I don't feel any
Yes.
tension. I don't feel any negativity. You know, we understand the hardships everybody's in. But I think we're working together. This is actually, you know, I told y'all the first go around, this is my first time. It's been a really good experience so far though, you know?
Well, I can tell you, sitting on this side, it's not normally this friendly. Normally it's not, right? Normally it's a lot more adversarial. I think we're all in this together. We got to figure this out one way or another.
I agree.
And there's gonna be some give, and that's why I asked the question. I had to ask the tough questions. What are you willing to give up? What can we cut? What can we do without? You know, the last thing we want is you guys working with gear that's out of certification, for example. Those things that have to happen. We have to renew certification. There's certain things that must occur. You know, we can't have vehicles out of compliance. Right now, we're at a situation where we are operating drastically below where we need to be. Supposed to have 4-person engines, we have a 1-person engine. We're literally to the point that if we don't do something drastic changes will have to come.
Yes.
Up to possibly including, do we need to consider, and I hate to say this, but closing down a station? We know that that's been looked at before. And it was not very, very well received. Longer call times. There's just a cause and effect to everything that happens. And we can't continue to keep severely underpaying our folks because before you know it, if a fire max exodus occurs, we're gonna be having to shut down a station anyway. We're gonna have bodies to operate one station.
We may be involved in litigation. If something really goes bad and somebody, a citizen decides, well, we weren't covered well enough, we're gonna sue the city.
That's right.
And that's the last thing we want.
That liability is there. and We do want to help drastically reduce that as well.
The point I think Cesar is making is there's a reality that those of us that are plugged in know about. We are a severely underfunded city, period. That reality has to break through this layer of lies and disinformation that's happening in our community. We got to get past that and get to the citizens that don't know what's happening and communicate that to them because we can get past these lies. The fact of the matter is Jody is showing up at your house while it is on fire and your grandchildren are in there by himself. And he can't really do anything. Because if he goes in, he's risking his life, he's risking whoever's lives are in that building. He's also risking his family. Because at the end of the day, if he dies there, then Gus is gonna have to try to figure out where the liability falls.
Right, and that education to the public that you speak of is very important.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of avenues for it. You know, we have our own Facebook page, but we keep it positive. We keep it, you know, that we are training, that we are putting in the effort, that we are trying to be prepared. This right here, what we're doing here, you know, and sharing PDs, that is educating the public, you know, that they do get a glimpse into the inside, you know.
Yeah.
Ours, I don't think has been posted yet, any of ours, but this is, I don't know of any other avenue other than this.
If they haven't been posted, they will be. I know Kyle's listening. I'm sure he'll make sure they.
And
And that's a huge avenue for communication, you know, because they're sitting here listening to us, the people actually doing it on the ground. And that's a glimpse of the inside and what it takes, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's important.
You're right.
All right, I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by the positivity. I'm encouraged by the fact that in light of all these situations and all the doom and gloom, that we have good people that care, that want to be here. And the money didn't matter if they had to pick between here and somewhere else, they'd want to be here. That speaks a lot of leadership. It speaks a lot of the culture that you've created. So I applaud all of you guys on that aspect of it. We're gonna figure this out one way or another, even if it means that, you know, what someone wants for something to be a public records request, we're gonna have to do it digitally from now on because we're gonna cut out paper and toner. I mean, it might mean that we're gonna have to just figure it out. I mean, it starts with all of us. It starts with all of us. Every single person's got to do so. Final question. just out of curiosity, of your 31 firefighters, how many of them would you say that live in the city?
Let's see.
And you
Roughly,
don't have to answer that right now.
Okay,
But if you
yeah.
could get me a straw poll,
Sure.
I'm curious to know.
I mean, off the top of the head, like I said,
Just, I'm just
Okay.
curious to find out what that is,
Brandon.
because there's other incentives that we need to offer.
yeah, and we have a 250.
Two questions, actually,
Yes.
if you can. One, out of those 31, or the entire fire department, whatever you want to do, how many folks, X out of Y, live in the city of Lamar? Okay. And two, how many of those folks do not yet own a home? Okay, and the reason why I'm asking that is because there's other incentive plans that we're trying to do citywide. We don't get a chance to exchange in a forum like this. We're trying to incentivize folks that may want to live in the city to do so in other forms and way, shape, or form. Help them,
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
achieve a dream of buying a home and so on and so forth.
Not with taxpayer dollars, but just
No.
trying to facilitate
Just
programming
facilitate that,
for
right.
for the range of our members.
Absolutely. We can do that.
Okay. I'm encouraged. I know it's a long meeting, but more to come. I think we've all got our marching orders. We've got a lot we need to do between now and our next meeting. If you can provide a bullet point of kind of just brief, half page, full page, and please, you know, possibility to do so. I really appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you, guys, again.
Keep
We
going.
appreciate everything that you all do for our city. Keep plugging away, keep working. We'll figure it out.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
everybody out there.